Hi everyone, welcome to the seminar. It is beyond fantastic to see you here in the 3D for our seminar sessions. We have 3 sessions left today, next week, and then our final wrap-up session where I'm really looking forward to pulling together insights that we've all had the opportunity to learn over the course of the quarter together, and I'm really excited to share a lot of reflections and questions that you all have been bringing up throughout the quarter as we've been hearing from our seminar speakers. So we're currently now recording and we are live streaming. So for folks who are listening in via Panopto, welcome. And for folks who are here, again, we can't be more excited to have you here in person. We have been following the topic of food rescue innovation throughout the food chain and the food industry. And we finally come to the point where we've explored all of these different innovations that have been looking at innovative approaches to reducing food loss and food waste at various stages. And now we've come to the end of EPA's food waste hierarchy. And I'd like for you to think of it not necessarily as an end, but actually as both an end and also a beginning. And our presenters today from Impact Bioenergy are going to talk more about the circular economy aspect of their innovation. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Michael Smith and also Peyton Ridland from Impact Bioenergy. They're going to share a little bit more about themselves and how they came into this work. And then we're going to get to learn about the innovative technology that they're going to be discussing today.
Yes, welcome. Great to see everybody live in the same room. I'm Michael Smith, Director of Legal and Business Development for Impact Bioenergy. And Alyssa asked us to, and thank you Alyssa for inviting us to be part of the seminar. And I like how you said that. It's not really the end, it's the beginning. So we'll get into that. Alyssa asked us to introduce ourselves first. How did we get to Impact? It's a little loud. I'll talk lower. So my story, how did I get here? I'm going to break it into 2 chapters. So the first chapter was very traditional career path. Went to school in DC, studied economics, environmental studies, got a job on the Hill. Great place to start your career. Worked there for 6 years, and then became a lobbyist. And then I went to law school, and I became a real estate lawyer. So I was fine, everything was great. I was on a career path, and then the music stopped. So this is 2008, and there was a housing bubble, the Great Recession, and I was in real estate development, and so the money dried up, so I was out of a job. So I felt like I was riding a wave, and then it crashed. So I just rolled with it. I thought, well, this is a great opportunity to do some soul searching and think about what next. What can I do that can make a difference? And so I put up my antennas to see what interests me, really, truly. This is something I need to take full advantage of and do a pivot. So I looked around and I was finding a lot of movement, development around clean energy. And so I thought, that sounds like the future, where I want to go. So I started taking classes. I went back to school and began chapter 2. So I got an education in clean energy wherever I could get one. And I came back, learned about entrepreneurship. I joined the U.S. Green Building Council, got my lead AP, and audited classes here at UW in entrepreneurship. I also volunteered as a judge for the Environmental Innovation Challenge. So I was a quick study, and then I thought, well, I'm ready to now jump in to this new field. So I looked around and found the Clean Tech Alliance. So I volunteered, also with the Clean Energy Angel Group called Element 8, E8 now, and became a due diligence fellow, which is a great place to be because I was sitting on the front row vetting startups in clean energy between the investor and the inventor. So Impact Bioenergy was one of the first companies that I did due diligence on, excuse me. And it was a company that had so much promise. It just started. It was 2013, 14. But it was early on, and they didn't have any projects. And so that was my specialty, project development. So I thought, with my real estate background, and now my new education in clean energy, I could lend a hand. So I joined, and after 20 projects, here we are today. Peyton, how did you get here?
Well, my story is not as long, but I want to preface this with I'm a little bit under the weather, so if my voice starts to go at some point, bear with me. But my name's Peyton. I'm originally from Southern California. My family background is in horses through and through, so if there's any horse people that want to nerd out about that, feel free to come talk to me. I am currently finishing my degree in environmental science resource management here at UW. I actually graduate in about 2 weeks. I'm also doing minors in quantitative science and business. And that's before I head to Chicago next year to do a master's in renewable energy at Northwestern. Originally, I was planning on doing aerospace engineering, and then physics came, and then I am now no longer doing aerospace engineering. I took some civil and environmental engineering classes back at a temporary study program at Stanford, and that's really what sold it for me. I just instantly fell in love and haven't really looked back since. So fast forward a few years at UW, my junior year, I was looking for internships over the summer, and I found a private media event that Impact Bioenergy was hosting out on Vashon Island, and somehow weaseled my way into an invitation, and then was an absolute pest to our CEO, Jan Allen, and I followed him around the entire day and bugged him when he was probably trying to do way more important things, to the point where just by the end of the day he asked for my resume, and I still firmly believe that initially it was to get me to leave him alone. Little did he know that I would end up being an intern very shortly after. Being an intern at a small startup with 6 to 8 people means that you do absolutely everything. Everyone does everything. I'm sure Michael can attest to that. One day might start with helping some of the engineers down in Auburn building and testing our new digesters. Before lunch, I might have to go dumpster diving at the local food bank with permission. And then after lunch, running some data analysis and then meetings before going home. So no 2 days really look the same, and you kind of have to learn to be a jack of all trades, even though you might not be master of any. But that's pretty much how I got to Impact. Since then, I'm no longer the intern. I'm now a distribution and marketing analyst. It's a fancy name, even though I'm still at the bottom of the totem pole. But I've loved it, and we're coming up on a year being there. So I'm excited to see what we can do in the next few months before I head out to Chicago.
Awesome. Peyton is an awesome worker. He'll do anything. And it's just kind of gritty attitude we need, with the startup, because you don't know what's going to be needed the next day, and you got to be ready for anything. So it takes a real great attitude and perseverance, and we love them. So I'm glad we talked about end of the road, which is where we like to be. We want to make sure the food is recovered first, or rescued, and goes to people or animals, and then after that, we come in. So we start the whole cycle all over again by recovering food waste into beneficial products. And we'll talk about that. And we'll also talk about what AD is, and then what impact, what's Impact doing here? What role do we play? So let's talk about the basic information about AD.
Yeah, so anaerobic digestion, or AD, because anaerobic digestion is a mouthful, is the process of microbes breaking down organic material in an oxygen-free environment. The outputs from that are raw biogas and digestate. For us, that digestate comes out in a liquid form. The raw biogas can be upgraded from its original 50 to 70% methane content all the way up to 96% plus methane that is the same quality as stuff that goes into our energy grids. And that digestate, which initially looks like kind of watered down crude oil, is an amazing fertilizer and can be applied either directly to crops, since it is mostly water, or it can be dried and condensed, so it can be shipped pretty much anywhere in the world and used for the same purpose. But the entire process pretty much mimics what a cow does. So our anaerobic digesters are pretty much just glorified mechanical cows.
Very good. So Impact, the story or the reason for being. If you study digesters, you're going to see mainly big scale projects, wastewater treatment plants, big dairy, and regional facilities like this one. So Jan Allen, our CEO and founder, was working for a company building these big plants. That one's in British Columbia. And he was getting inquiries from the market, from other companies asking for, can you build smaller? Can you build something that can fit on our property, behind the restaurant, on campus? And there was really no interest in doing that by the company. So he was thinking, wow, this is high capital costs. These are hard to permit. They take 4 to 5 years to build one. And you have to truck all the food waste to it. So not a really efficient system. So he came up with the decentralized model. Prefab, modular systems, repurposed containers. So on the left, my left, sorry, you're right. That side, Peyton's side, is the horse. 20, that's a ISO shipping container that's been repurposed. So it's a 20 by 8. We start horses there, and then the next size up is the Nautilus. And this one is 40 by 8.5. It's a frac tank that's been repurposed. So these are frac tanks we buy in North Dakota at a fracking field, and we take them, bring them here to Auburn, and we repurpose them into renewable energy facilities. It's pretty remarkable. Pretty strong statement. So that's the space we're going after is small scale, on-site, back of restaurants, on campuses. That's was brilliant.
So we're missing something, but
oh, here we go.
Gotcha. Getting into the value proposition of Impact and what our digesters can do. They can really, our digesters can really do some amazing stuff. So if we're looking at the example here, starting out with a typical 40-gallon trash can full of food waste, something that you'd see at a typical restaurant, putting that through one of our digesters, you get out those two outputs that we said earlier, the gas and then the digestate. So that one trash can produces 1 gasoline gallon equivalent, or GGE, or 7 kilowatt hours of clean energy, which is actually one of the only forms of combustion energy that's carbon negative, as well as 7 gallons of organic plant food with zero waste. So turning a waste stream into something like that is pretty amazing. But then dissecting the products that we offer, so we've mentioned terms like Horse or Nautilus, and so those are two different types of digesters that we make. So the Horse is the smaller digester that we make, and the smallest Horse that we make only requires around 135 pounds of feedstock a day. The feedstock would be that food waste. And that's really meant for restaurants or small food banks, that very, very local scale. But even just with horses, that scales all the way up to around half a ton of food waste per day, which really dials into larger food banks and even smaller school and business campuses and isolated communities. The other side of that is the Nautilus, and that's where things really get a lot bigger. So that takes that half-ton feedstock per day and goes all the way up to over 4 tons per day. And that's really meant for food service and processing plants, larger communities, and larger campuses, something you'd see for UW or something like that.
This is our Horse at Microsoft headquarters. A link went out earlier, so if you get a chance to go back and you should watch the video. It's about a minute long. And it's an interview with Vashon Island, our CEO. It's really well put together. This is a double horse. It's 2 shipping containers. Our base horse is 25 tons. This is 40. This was requested to match up to the kitchen. Behind it is the catering kitchen at Microsoft. The throughput's 40 tons in, organic waste from the catering kitchen, and the output's 1,400 therms, and they're using it for hot water only. So that was their request to preheat their boiler. So inside our container is a water heater, and the biogas, I don't have a picture of, but the second container on the far end is just the storage for biogas. So that whole 20 by 8 in the back end, inside it is just one big bladder that fills up. And so it's energy on demand. And when they kick on the water heater, the biogas combusts and heats up water, and they run a loop into the kitchen. And this here in the middle, down there, that's our gas treatment technology. So it's running through these different, it's a manifold, and it's taking out moisture and sulfur. So clean enough to combust, run a generator or water heater. This over on this side here is call it the mouth. It's the grinding station. So the food waste goes in here, and then behind it are the 2 tanks. So it finds its way. It's pretty automated. Once we feed it in, it feeds itself. So there's not a lot of labor to operate it. And then the biogas bubbles up and goes out to the storage container, and then the liquid fertilizer flows out into a tote. And so we collect that and take it to a CSA Farm. This is our largest, 40 times bigger than the Horse. This is on Vashon Island. We did a nice architecture cladding there to make it look like a farm, but inside are 2 frac tanks. And above it is our greenhouse where we run experiments. So the throughput is 1,500 tons, and enough, I'll talk about this a little later, but we're using the energy to run that truck. So we're upgrading the gas to RNG, renewable natural gas, compressing it and putting it in that truck, and it's quite amazing because it's running on food waste.
So we've mentioned this previously, and I'm sure you guys have learned about this throughout the seminar earlier in the quarter, but we really just wanted to hammer down how the circular economy pertains to impact, and how we've really tried to simplify it into just 3 different entities. So pretty much food begins its journey, well, I guess it doesn't begin its journey, but for the sake of this, I'm going to say it begins its journey here. food processors. So whether that be an actual food processing plant, your household, restaurants, whatever, produces a waste stream of unused food, which then comes to our anaerobic digester and then is turned into those two outputs that we mentioned earlier, the biogas, which we use for a myriad of different things, and then the digestate, which then would ideally go to help the local agricultural community produce fresh and healthy food that then goes back into the food sector, which uses it and then produces more food waste. Then the cycle starts all over. So that's the circular economy we're really trying to emphasize locally, around the country, and around the world, because traditionally this has been a linear system that has a start and an end and has been extremely inefficient. So we're trying to take something that's been harmful to the environment and turn it into a truly sustainable system. So just to emphasize what we're trying to do on Vashon Island again, this is our flagship model for this circular economy. It works really well on Vashon Island because it really is an island, so it's an isolated community that's great for this kind of work. But the food processing sector is a organic tofu factory that's right next to our digesters. So all of their food waste goes directly into our digester, which then produces the biogas and digestate, which goes to fuel vehicles on island and then help local farms grow their own crops. So yeah, we're just that's what we've been trying to do the past few months to open up more farms to that liquid digestate, and so far it's been going great.
I want to switch gears and talk about a project that's current, and this was a link that was sent out as well. Their Facebook video came out this week, so this is very, very current. So it's the Duwamish Valley Sustainability Association and Sustainable Seattle formed a partnership to hire youth in South Park to do some sustainable projects. And so they reached out to Impact, and we embraced the idea to work with them and set up with them, collaborated on a project to collect and digest and study, the whole process of food waste that would otherwise go to landfill in their neighborhoods. So this was the group of students. And the next thing, so they documented what they did. This is the greenhouse on top of the Vashon plant. And this project is in the making. So they got funded through the Port of Seattle, and they visited with us. We worked with them, and we're looking to do the next project. And they want to develop a project in South Park, as well as replicate it around other countries. So this is really ambitious. It's really inspiring when you come around these digesters and watch our team work. You get to see it. You quickly understand what's going on. The food waste, we all know. We all have it. It's everywhere. So this is such a better system, and it's placed, in the communities, at the community level. So it can be replicated in every community around the world. I'm going to switch now just to talk about, I find it fascinating that because we've been on this road to miniaturize a very old technology, it's been around forever, we are kind of forcing us to be really innovative and our partners to be innovative. So we have to find partners who are willing to downsize their technologies. So the first thing we did through a Clean Energy Fund 2 award, we built that biogas to biomethane technology. So it's a refinery, and that's this system here. You've seen it in slides before, but this is a better picture. So what we're doing is, the biogas is the first stage, and it's just a mixture of methane and CO2. And that's good enough to run a generator, a gas plug, a spark plug generator or heat water. But if you want to use it for a higher and better use, it needs to be refined. So this system here with the pipes is the upgrading technology, and what it's doing is it's forcing the gas through it and it's holding the carbon. So only the methane is coming out. So it's changing the percentage to like 97% methane. And so the big sphere is where biogas first goes, and then it goes to the refinery, and then we store it in this little tank, and now it's RNG, renewable natural gas, CNG, ready to be put in the vehicle with a compressor and a dispenser. So the whole system is right here, and the truck is the end-use vehicle. That's pretty cool. So that's step number one, or our first technology advancement, getting this refinery built on a skid. Second technology advancement, the U District Food Bank is buying a digester, and the building, it's a mixed-use project, so the food bank's on the main floor, residents above, and so they didn't want any combustion in the building. And so it forced us to get innovative with how to use the energy. Their goal is to charge their electric vans, refrigerator vans, and without combustion. So that was the challenge. And so we found a fuel cell vendor that has a small fuel cell that could work with our system. So we now have put together the proposal, and we're going through permits right now with the city. So this is coming soon to your neighborhood. Third technology advancement is not really our technology. We're supporting the Pacific Northwest National Lab is doing, it's a similar type of system. Well, it's not real similar, but the goal is the same, to take organic material and turn it into energy. A little bit more sophisticated. They're converting it to biocrude that can be refined to jet fuel. And this is their facility, the HTL. And so what they're interested in us for is really to help with they have a waste stream. So they're not a zero waste system. And it's called the aqueous phase waste. And so they want to figure out what to do with that to make it, to create some more efficiencies and reduce the waste stream and reduce the carbon emissions. So we're partnering up to take that waste stream and run it through the digester, the seed that will digest it into beneficial products. And that contract is being written up right now, and Peyton's going to be the manager of the project.
So we know a lot of the stuff we just threw at you is pretty niche to Impact Bioenergy, and we're looking at a much bigger problem and bigger solution than just us. So other ways to get involved that help this problem holistically without having to get involved with anaerobic digestion is obviously volunteering at your local food bank. The one above is University District Food Bank. Volunteering with farmers markets. You could be the gleaner, which is the person that actually goes around after the market's closed and takes all of the unsold produce and sends it off to the food banks. You could also just shop at your local farmers markets because they support farmers that really benefit from the stuff that we do. You can contact Sustainable Seattle, which is the organization in the videos that hopefully you had a chance to glance at before coming in today. You can shop at Recology, which is one of the stores that actually holds our products. If you have your own home garden, that helps us directly. But also, the biggest thing you can do is just to keep learning about this. It's a really big topic, and like I said, we're just a really small part of the solution. And when you do learn, sharing it with others is a really big thing, because the technology is all there to fix the problem. We just have to get people to know there's a problem and to care about it. If any of this was interesting to you and you want to keep going with the discussion, or if you want a tour of Impact, or if you want to get in touch with Pacific Northwest National Lab, because they're always looking for interns, feel free to contact us. Our info is right up there. There's Michael's, there's mine, and then there's Jim with PNNL. But otherwise, we just want to thank you guys so much for being here. Especially, it's exciting to be back here in person. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, so this was our first live in-person presentation. Again, many thanks. I think you walked the group through a group that comes from, with an interdisciplinary background, a lot of different perspectives, and you were able to walk them through anaerobic digestion, which is definitely an accomplishment. And it was really fascinating to learn more about how this fits in, like Peyton was saying, to the broader question around the problem of food loss and food waste that we've been talking about this whole quarter long. So this is our time for questions and answers, and also discussion. So if folks want to, in place, ask a question, or if you want to get some steps in and walk up to the podium, you're welcome to come and ask a question on the live mic. So we'll open it right now.
Go for it.
What's the startup cost for, for example, just like the basic horse digester?
So for our smallest digester, I think the initial cost is around $160,000. But I don't know about any other costs like installation and stuff like that.
Yeah, 10, 20 for everything else, permitting, installation. Figure 180.
But with most of our customers, we also look to try and find grants and stuff like that help them out with that cost.
We help too. We help look for grants.
Does it require any sort of special skills or qualifications to use one of these digesters? Could a restaurant have their own people? Do you need to hire somebody to run it or digest their waste for them? How does that work?
Oh, no, totally easy. So I have a funny story about that. One of my first tasks as an intern, before I knew really how anaerobic digestion worked or how our machines worked, Jan Allen, our CEO, asked me to help rewrite the certification program that we offer to new operators, because our old program was kind of clunky, and some operators had kind of complained that it didn't really help them understand what they were doing. And so my response was, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. How am I supposed to write the textbook? And he just said, go for it. So with a little bit of self-teaching and just asking, the engineers and Michael and Wrapup, and another guy at the company, kind of figured it out. And it's really easy to learn once you kind of get an in-person tutorial. And with our little operator certification course, it's very straightforward. The machines are designed to be as easy to use as possible.
That's a really great question. And I'm wondering, can you quantify how much time it would be? Let's say it was in a restaurant. How much time would it take the restaurant to kind of manage a horse, for example?
Yeah.
I would say 10 hours a week. That's probably a good number. It could be when we were doing Fremont Brewing, I don't know, there's a picture on our website, the blue one. I was an operator, and we'd go maybe twice a week. But that was an easy feedstock. It was spent yeast from the brewery, so we're just pouring it in. But if it's food from a restaurant, it'll take some more time. So I would estimate 10 hours is a good number a week. But anyone can learn. You just have to have a sense of ownership of the system. It's a biological system. It's a living system. Make sure the pH and the temperature are on par and it stays healthy. That's the concern. If it gets out of whack, it gets sour, and then we have to mitigate that or remediate that. So you want to try to avoid that.
Yeah, let's take in the back and then we'll go to the front.
It seems like the system is pretty big and needs a big like space to operate. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Have you guys thought of creating it on a smaller scale, so like restaurants like in the city where there's not a lot of space can use them?
Yeah, so we did a little bit with that. I think we made a one-off example of what's called a Seahorse, and that's almost like a countertop version. I don't know a ton about it because that was before I got there, but I know we have made it smaller before.
Yeah, we have, but we don't really want to go smaller. We think it's not going to be commercially viable to build lots of small ones. So we really resist going smaller than the horse, but we have built the Seahorse and even a Colt, which we call the smallest one, which is used in a lab up in Calgary.
That's a great question. I know that there are some direct-to-consumer products that are coming out that sound like they're kind of like the Seahorse. They go on your countertop in your residential home, and you can put your food waste in there. So let's say you live in an apartment in downtown Seattle. You don't have access to a pea patch or to a compost pile. In theory, you could put your food waste into these. They almost look like printers. You could put your food waste in there, and then it, through not anaerobic digestion, but some process, it creates material that you can then fold into soil for potted plants and that type of thing. That was a great question. And we had a question over here.
Yes, I was just wondering, how do you think the big campus like UW can incorporate some of the
Yeah, I mean, it can easily do that around centralized areas like the hub that have a bunch of restaurants. That would be probably the ideal place to put one of these units because they thrive off of high supply. I mean, it's a great learning opportunity for students, in my opinion, especially those that want to get into the field, because it's really easy to pick up and you can really start quantifying a lot of the impact you're starting to make. Universities are a great environment for these types of units because they're like mini cities in themselves. So a lot of the outputs can be used on campus. The energy produced can be used on campus, and the liquid digestate can be used to keep all of the plants and greenery at UW healthy and green. So, I mean, it can be incorporated relatively seamlessly, in my opinion, but I'm sure Michael's done some work with that.
Well, yeah, that's a good question. You think it'd be easy, but I mean, the students are very enthusiastic about it. We get this at many universities. And the faculty is interested as well because it's a great learning vehicle. But then the facilities people are not very interested because they fear that they're going to be left with it after the students leave and enthusiasm runs down. So there's these silos, and it's hard to break through to get it up to the central leader who really embraces it. We have two now at universities, Pittsburgh, so they bought the small horse, the Seahorse. And it was a student group and they got a grant. So they were very resourceful students. They got the money, they just did it. And it's there and it's fantastic. And UC San Diego, we got on their campus because there was a big plan to expand the campus to a new campus or adjacent to the main campus. And so the architecture firm that was bidding for that project, the whole thing, $500 million project, threw in the horse. And as an innovative design, because they called the campus the living learning neighborhood campus. And so with the living digester, they won the bid. So that came in at the front end of the project. And we landed, and the faculty are like, this is cool. The facility is like, what is this? What are we going to do with this? So we were able to work with students to train them, and they run the horse. And now they're very enthusiastic and have gotten, they broke through on the plant food side now. The landscaping team is taking it, finally. And on the energy side, they had this elaborate idea, which required a fire marshal approval, so they're actually using the energy as a fireplace feature. So they have an outdoor fireplace that's using the biogas. So it's pretty fantastic. Western Washington has been trying to do one for years, and we've been through like a cycle of 4 student, generations, and it just never seems to happen. So it's almost, you need to like act of Congress to do it.
Another challenge I can think of with universities is digesters work really well with consistent feedstocks, and when there's very large seasonal variation in feedstock volume, obviously during the summer that dips substantially, that's not great for the digester. When the microbes die off, it takes a while to to build up the population again, which is something we experienced with a couple digesters during COVID, because for example, like at a business campus during COVID, everyone got sent home, so they turned off the digester, and so you can't just like flip the switch and turn it back on. You kind of have to build up that population again. So overcoming that hurdle with something like a campus to get through like the summer months is definitely a big thing, but not impossible. You just have to kind of plan accordingly for it.
I have a news alert though. Maritime in California just bought one. So a college campus is getting a horse. They pulled it together. They were talking to us for about 2 years doing due diligence, and then somebody said, "We want it. Let's do it." And so they called and said, "We're ordering it." So we're waiting for the check. Leadership.
Sounds like a great potential project for a student club. Just putting it out there.
Can I make just another announcement though? There is a relationship between UW and U District Food Bank, which is close. It's in your neighborhood. So Professor Heidi Go, she's really excited about the microbes. She's been studying that forever. So she's looking to, work with her students and put together a master's program around the microbes at a bigger digester than what she has in her lab. So that's starting this effort, I think. Maybe eventually we can get here. I think the digestate, some of it's going to come to the facility. You have a greenhouse on campus. It's going to go there. And they'll do research, growth trials.
Yeah, it sounds like there's lots of opportunities. Any other questions? We have maybe about 5 minutes left in our session today. Okay, any other reflections from our speakers?
We'll also hang around for a few minutes if anyone doesn't want to ask a question on live recording or in front of everyone. We'll be outside. But it's been great to be able to come and speak to people in person and people that are interested. So thanks for having us.
I just want to say one other thing, that if I have a minute. The version laws. So policy is key. In order for these new technologies, we're kind of a disruptive industry. We're disrupting the industry. We're competing with the garbage truck, the dumpsters, the landfills. That's infrastructure that's well laid out. And we're coming in and saying, no, we could just keep it here. You don't need to truck it away. And so there's a lot of resistance to that. So policy is really helpful, public-private partnerships. And in Washington State, right now, there's a bill that's going to start the process to encourage diversion. So that's the term, diverting from landfills to somewhere else, diverting to digesters, diverting to composting. So there's been a lot of thought around that bill, and they realize that if we're not sending it to landfill, we need to have the capacity and the infrastructure in all of our cities to take this new, diversion material. So there's incentives in there for end users, farmers, to get subsidized to buy products. So that's really key. That's going to help us. So anyway, Washington State's a leader in this field. So you should check it out. Check out, I forgot the bill number, but if you look up methane reduction, and you can follow that. Because that's the first step. Next year, another bill is coming to create more projects like ours, to create the accepted diversion.
Excellent. That's a really wonderful point about the important role that policy and incentives have in actually creating feasible renewable energy solutions like this. So let's give one final round of applause for our speakers today.
Thank you.
We do have a couple more minutes, so I just want to open it up if folks have any questions about the seminar thus far. If you're at the undergraduate level, we still have this session and the next session that are open for you to write a reflection on. So you have to do 5 out of the 8 guest speaker seminars. You need to do a reflection for those. Most folks might already be done and you're just kind of enjoying the seminars and getting to kick back and relax. And then at the end, whether you're at the 400 level or the 500 level, everyone will turn in a final reflection where we'll really synthesize everything we've learned, because this topic has really been building as we've been going week by week, and now we finally sort of close the loop here in the circular economy of food loss and food waste with looking at this really unique application of anaerobic digestion at a site-by-site level. So any questions before we close out? And then when we do, I'll just deaden the mics, and if folks want to come up and interact with our speakers before heading out, you'll have some time to do that. So any logistical questions about the seminar? It's so great to see you here. We'll be here next week also, and for the final session as well. And in the meantime, feel free to engage with our speakers.